This is Unexplained America, and I'm your host, Lisa. And thank you so much for joining me this week. And this special episode is actually the very last episode of the year of 2025. So yay. I'm excited. This episode is a fun movie review of a Christmas horror movie named Black Christmas. And we will get into all of that. But just a little bit of chat with you guys. So we are here, like when I'm recording this, it is almost Christmas. It's a few days out from Christmas. I am ready. Hopefully you guys are too. And I'm excited. Christmas is just really joyous. And I'm very thankful for all of you guys in the unexplained world and in the Facebook group. And so that kind of goes into the business side of things. So if you're new to this, please listen, please subscribe, please follow. I have a Patreon, so join the Patreon, support the podcast through that. But just reviewing, giving a rating, reviews, subscriptions, comments, all of that helps support the podcast. And I am on all the social medias, so go join the Facebook group. You can follow me on Instagram, TikTok. So yeah. So like we mentioned, we're just going to finish the year on the spooky. And so I realized, I don't think we've had a movie review episode. I don't think I've done a movie review episode. And then also, I love horror movies. I watch them all the time. But I've never really seen a Christmas horror movie, like an actual, what I consider Christmas horror movie. So I did consult the Google, and I Googled, Christmas horror movies. And there's so many that pop up that I personally don't feel like were horror movies. Probably unpopular opinion here, but Gremlins comes on the list for things, and I'm like, no. And I'm just not a huge fan, although it's been a minute since I've seen Gremlins, but I consider it kind of in the bucket of like, it's no more scarier than like E.T. or something. I don't know. It's just not what I consider a horror movie, like Friday the 13th or Halloween, like a true horror movie. So I did Google. I did consult the Good Housekeeping, list. I think it was like of 2025 of the best quote unquote Christmas horror movies. And I think they have a list, of 25 top movies. And so I then chose 3 movies that I put out there on the Facebook for the listeners and Facebook group to vote on. So, and it was pretty unanimous. So I'm gonna, like I said, I chose 3, and I also, like, on the list, there were a lot of some newer movies or whatever, but I think my favorite horror movies were from the 70s and 80s for me, other than The Conjuring, because I love the whole Conjuring universe. But some of the best for me were in that era. And then also, I definitely wanted to pick a movie that I hadn't seen before, of course. So I put out there to choose between Black Christmas, the 1974 version, and then there was a movie called Christmas Evil from 1980, and then there was one called Silent Night, Bloody Night from 72. Any of those. And it was pretty unanimous to come back as Black Christmas of 1974. So that's what I went with. And I was like, cool. I've never seen this movie. I had no knowledge of it. And then when I was starting to like look at where I could stream it and such, it was popping up newer versions, I guess. So it has been redone, and we'll talk about that. And I have not seen the remakes because I wanted to, of course, watch the 1974 version. So we'll kind of get into it. So, of course, when you're watching a horror movie, you don't want to watch it alone, of course. So Daryl watched it with me, and he's such a trooper to watch scary movies for one thing. Although I don't feel like he's as into them as I am. Definitely not. But he's a good sport, and he will watch them with me. And ultimately, I think he thinks most movies are awful. So he's hard to please when it comes to movies. I am not. I love them all. So anyway, so I was excited. I was really excited to watch this. Now, warning, this will have contained spoilers, but I think I'm real late to this game, and you guys will probably be like, why haven't you seen this movie? I mean, the movie's 51 years old now, so I think we're safe on the spoilers. But yeah, so we're gonna kind of get into it. So we're gonna do the introduction of the movie. So it is called Black Christmas. It was made in 1974. The director was a Bob Clark, and it was written by a Roy Moore. Bob Clark produced it. We'll get into kind of the actors and actresses involved, but it was a Canadian. It's a Canadian movie. It was filmed in Canada by Canadians. It was, I guess, what you would call like an independent film, or at least like a lower budget film. So they did make this movie in Toronto with a budget of $686,000, which is the equivalency of making a movie today for around $4 million, which is obviously a lower budget situation, and that's exciting. So, and I will say the lower the budget, for me, kind of the better movie. When I think of Halloween, which, goodness, I think that budget, if I'm remembering correctly, was somewhere around this or lower. It was around like $450,000, when it was made. So it would have been cheaper. So anyway, I don't mind a low budget situation. It's all about the quality, the vision, so as to speak. I didn't know anything about this movie, so it was cool. We're going to kind of get into the actual movie. And when I was watching the movie, I was definitely taking all the notes. I wanted to kind of keep up with how I felt and such about it. So basically, the movie kind of is called Black Christmas, and I think it was based on what I can read and such and about the movie. So like the Christmas comes in because the movie is set at Christmas. I think it's Christmas Eve or approaching Christmas Eve. I can't really tell or remember. I've watched it twice now, so it's not like Christmas Day perhaps, but it's like it's close. And so that's kind of, it's Christmas where it comes in. The Black Christmas, because it is a horror movie, it's like they did it off of the White Christmas, which of course the White Christmas movie is, a very famous movie, quintessential musical comedy, amazing cast. It was made in 1954, and it's got Bing Crosby and Rosemary Clooney, and it's just the quintessential Christmas movie. So when it comes up on the screen, like at the beginning of the movie, to Black Christmas, it's literally in that kind of 1950s font. That's what their thought was. This is opposite that movie, but in line with that movie, so to speak, in a very 70s horror fashion way, which is lovely, really, if you think about it. Again, so the movie opens and it's painting on like this old large home, and there's Christmas lights. It's obviously Christmas. I believe there's like snow on the ground. Like it's very, very wintry scene, very Christmassy scene. And it comes up and you can tell that it's like a sorority house. There's girls giggling inside. They're kind of having like a Christmas celebration. And it comes up and it does show there's like a Pi Kappa Sigma thing on the outside of the house. So that's what's on the outside of the house. Now, just a little interesting point. Inside the house, they do have pictures on the walls of like, I'm sure all of the classes of sororities or whatever. And it shows like a Pi Beta Phi. So on the walls, which is confusing and interesting. But anyway, so that's where it's coming in on. You see, it's just sorority house, and then you're kind of, I guess, from the killer's perspective, you don't really see the killer, like his eyes, and basically he comes up and he climbs up onto the house. He sneaks up on the house, climbs it, and then he goes into the attic of the house. So he's in the house. He's in this sorority house. The girls are doing their Christmas thing, and there's just drinks and food and girls, and the telephone rings, and it is one of the girl's family. And so this girl, this sorority girl, her name in the movie is Barb. The actress is Margot Kidder. And if you know Margot Kidder, she will be in the Superman movie, which will come out 4 years later. And that makes her famous. But I think of her as the Amityville Horror. So she does play Kathy Lutz in the Amityville Horror movie of 1979. So anyway, excellent actress. But in this movie, she's Barb, and she answers the phone, and she's kind of the spitfire of the group. She's consistently drunk and abrasive and cursing for the most part in most of this movie. But she answers the phone. It's her family. Clearly, she had plans to come home for the holidays. And then it sounds like her mom or whoever is kind of telling her, no, you don't need to do that. Like, plans have changed. Something's happened. I can't remember exactly what, but she just says, okay, you can tell she's clearly disappointed, but she's like, I'll just hang out with the girls here. Like, some of us will go skiing. So that happens. And then they're at the party. Like, this one girl in the sorority house, her name's Claire. So you see her and her boyfriend. He leaves. They have an exchange. Like, she'll become important, but her and the Barb character, like, they kind of get into it because there's another phone call that comes in. It is a prank call. Like, it's an awful call. In fact, like, you hear the conversation and you know that this is the killer that snuck into the house. He's somehow calling, and you know that, but they don't. And so the call is just, it's terrible. Like, it sounds great. The person is pranking them, but it's sounding like a mentally unstable person. They're kind of moaning. They're saying horrible things. I mean, very bad things that I will not repeat. Absolutely not. So that first scene is terrible. That first phone call by this person, and there will be multiple calls that they get, but that's kind of the first one. And then there's like a words exchanged by Barb and Claire, and Claire's kind of like I don't know, Barb's like calling her a virgin or something. I don't know. She's just, you can tell Claire's like the good girl, and Barb is the so-called bad girl, and they have words. And then there's another main character that comes in, and her name is Jess, and she's trying to like smooth over the exchange, and Claire's like, I'm gonna go pack, because she's leaving to go home. And anyway, so Jess is kind of like the smoother. She looks like a little she looks like Snow White to me, because she's just very like pretty, and her eyes are just wide and blank, and just like she's never had a bad thought in her life. Like, she's just like about to go outside where bluebirds are going to jump all over. But anyway, her name is Jess. She is played by Olivia Hussey, who, like, when I'm first watching this movie, I'm like, she looks so familiar. This actress. I'm like, Daryl, does she look familiar? She's like, yeah. She was actually, I don't know if you guys remember this, but when I was in high school, we had to watch the Romeo and Juliet, like, not the Leonardo DiCaprio version. But I think it was a 70s version of it. And so she was Juliet. I had to look this up because I was like, she looks so familiar. So when I put in her name, I was like, oh, she was Juliet. That's where I saw her from. So yeah, so she was she's very doe-eyed and just very, I don't know, like innocent, like you expect from, your horror movies always have the quote unquote innocent girl, that the survivor girl, especially in these 70s type movies, the girl that, but this is interesting because there's going to be a twist to this. But anyway, so moving forward. So you've got Claire upset. She goes upstairs to pack, and you've got the other girls here. You've got the party kind of dissipating. I think there's about 10 or 12 girls that actually like live in the house, and some are like obviously leaving for the holidays. Now you do have the house mother come in, lady. I don't know how old she was in this movie, but her name is Miss McHenry, and she's very lively, and she comes in and the girls are helping her with packages, and then they want to give her a gift. It's just like a very crazy, lively scene with Miss McHenry, okay? Right after this very early scene, I mean, we're only like 10 minutes into this movie, I want to say 10, 15 minutes into the movie. So upstairs, you can see through the killer's eyes. Of course, you're not seeing him, but he sneaks down from the attic where he's perched, and all kinds of crazy stuff is in the attic, by the way. And he comes in and he's stalking Claire. And so there's this whole very suspenseful, it is very, very suspenseful kill scene with Claire, and he basically is in her closet and she hears a sound and she thinks it's like Miss McHenry's cat. There's a Claude. There's just this whole movie's about this cat Claude that's no one's seen because really the Claude's been upstairs with the killer. But anyway, the killer does a whole death scene with Claire while she's packing. She kind of hears a noise, goes into the closet. He attacks her like with a plastic bag over her head. And then kind of cut to see her, like he puts her upstairs, kind of hides her body, just sits her in a rocker in front of a window in the attic with like the bag on her head, and like he literally like puts a doll in her lap or something. I think at one time the cat's in her lap, but anyway, very creepy. But that scene was a pretty well done little scare scene. It was very suspenseful, very you're trying to I feel like it's trying to be Hitchcock-ish. And so, but it's good. And this movie is in color, by the way. It's not like black and white. But anyway, I think a lot of young people think that the 70s, that it's black and white, like L's age people. So anyway, my daughter's age people. Teenage people think 1970s is definitely black and white movies. Anywho, so moving forward. So you have the first kill as Claire. So Claire is the first down. From there, you kind of fast forward. I don't think anything else happens after that scene that night, at least. It seems like everybody just kind of, Barb's drunk, Claire's packing. There is like a little exchange over the phone, Jess and boyfriends. It seems a little serious, like I think she says something about needing to talk to him. So, and she's got a real serious, her little serious doe-eyed face going on. But yeah, my notes on this feels very Friday the 13th-ish. This movie, Friday the 13th doesn't come out until 1980. So this movie was before. So maybe had their vibes off of this movie, really. Also, I note pretty good scare on the first kill. So it was suspenseful. I jumped. You had that. And then my thought was, did Ted Bundy come first? So, this man is killing inside a sorority house. And of course, that's what Ted Bundy did in Florida when he escaped prison. Was it the second time? Yeah. Anyway, so he actually did not come first. So it's interesting, like, did Ted Bundy see Black Christmas? Because he definitely, we'll kind of get into it, but his incident, I believe, was 78. So we're talking four years later. So those were my notes. I say the lady, the McHenry, is funny. So she's kind of the funny character. And I will say Miss McHenry, she's one of those characters. She comes in and she's looking for booze. She has booze like hidden all over the house, like in books and closets and different things. So she is completely boozed up like Barb this whole movie. So then kind of at the kill scene, you go into the next day, and then you find out the next day that, so the Jess character goes to her boyfriend, Peter. Now, Peter, he is played by I'm not going to say this name wrong, Akir Delulea. He was in the 2001 Space Odyssey movie, and he was someone that the director really wanted to have. Like, they really wanted this Olivia Hussey because they had seen Romeo and Juliet, and then they really wanted her boyfriend is Peter. Peter is his name in the movie. But anyway, so in the movie, Peter is like in the music conservatory. He's been training for a long time, and he has like this big thing coming. Well, she goes to see him and tells him that she's pregnant, and then she tells him that she's not going to keep the baby. And they have a whole big exchange where he is upset. He wants to marry her. She makes it very clear that she does not want to marry him, and she doesn't want, she has plans, and they don't include marriage, and they don't include this baby. And so that's what she tells Peter, and that upsets him. And then he goes into performance that I guess he's been working up to, where he's like performing on the piano, on a grand piano, in front of like these serious instructors or whatever, and he bombs. Okay, he plays terribly. Like, it doesn't go well. So anyway, you have that going on, and then you also kind of at the same time, you have Claire's dad who shows up. There's like a whole scene where he's looking around downtown, and then he finds a guy. He gets hit with like a snowball from a kid and finds a gentleman and asks about Claire, if he knows who Claire is. And he's like, yeah, I think the dad just says she's in this sorority, and he's like, yeah, I know her. Some of the people in the sorority were having they were having a Christmas party for kids. Like they were supposed to be doing this for kids, having a Santa there and such. And he takes this guy, he kind of instructs him where to go. And so you see Claire's dad, he's looking for her, and he goes to the place where the other girls are, which Barb is there. Again, Barb is drunk. She's playing with the kids. There's a guy from a different fraternity dressed up. He's one of the girls' boyfriends, and he's terrible. It's just terrible. He's cursing in front of the kids and such. So anyway, or Claire's dad is clearly not into all this, but he's asking about Claire. And she's like, well, she's not here. You go to the sorority house. So then he makes his way to the sorority house. He meets up with Miss McHenry. He's looking over all the house. He is not pleased with what he's looking at because there's just posters and things that are not conservative. So anyway, he's looking over everything. He's like, I didn't send my daughter here to become drunk or whatever. So anyway, or philander with boys or whatever. But basically she's like, where Claire is, we thought that she left. She was packing, going home. We haven't seen her. This is very serious. We know that Claire's in the attic, but nobody knows where Claire is. So this is the whole thing with looking for Claire. Now, kind of fast forward, they do go, and they're still getting phone calls. I think they've gotten another prank call coming in. And again, it's not near as horrendous. I mean, this first crank call, when I say it was bad, it was ugly. I mean, they say the C word to these girls. Yeah, I'm not going to get into that. I mean, it was just terrible. But the other prank calls are just weird moaning and different things being spoken, but it's like clearly someone mentally unstable. So Barb and Jess, I think they take the dad. They do go to the police station because they want to file a missing persons report. And then there at the police station, you get this sergeant at the desk. He's going to pop up repeatedly, but there's like a whole comedy sketch going on here. Not comedy sketch, but they're trying to be funny, I guess. But like this guy's not being serious. He just tells them, well, she's probably run off with a boy. And that's what he's telling the father. So she'll show up. So they don't take it seriously. So they leave. And then Jess hunts down Claire's boyfriend who's playing hockey. And then she gets him involved. She's like, we can't find Claire. The police aren't taking it seriously. They think she ran off with a boy. And so then he gets involved. They go back to the police station. They do finally get to see like a detective and take it seriously or talk to them about it. And then all of a sudden it's kind of weird. All of a sudden they're like in the park. It's like they were looking for Claire, but all of a sudden they're in a park and the police are looking for, and there had been another mom in the police department that was filing a missing persons report, but her kid was like a kid. She was like 13. So now they're in the park. It's clearly freezing cold. People are with the police. They've got together a search party in the park, and they're looking for this girl now. Claire and them are there. So it's like they're helping, or they're thinking that maybe they're connected. They don't really voice this. So this part is kind of really weird. Long story short, you find out that they do find that girl and she has died. They don't show you any of that, but they tell you that, and that poor mom and such. That is all intertwined with Claire's dad and looking for Claire. Now, in the meantime, Barb is having a whole episode at the house. They're back at the house. Miss McHenry. There's Jess. There is a girl named Phil. They wanted Gilda Radner to play this part. And this woman that got the part, she looked really familiar to me as well. Yeah, no joke. So it's Andrea Martin, and she's been in a million things. Yeah, she plays the aunt in My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Tula's aunt, Vula. Yeah, Aunt Vula. She is awesome. But Andrea Martin plays this Phil character, and I don't know, there's just this whole scene, and Barb is drunk and just totally inappropriate, and she's clearly distressed about Claire being gone, but then she's also talking about how dead, then everyone's going to blame me because I made her upset that night. So that was kind of the thing. So she makes it all about her. And it's just awful. And then Claire's poor dad's like in this scene, and it's just stupid. But she's drunk, so Jess makes her like go to bed. So she's in bed. Phil and Jess are up. Dad is around, and Miss McHenry is around. So you've got them. Everybody else in the house is like left on, Christmas vacation. They're with their family. And I will say that lieutenant, so when they're finally, like, they get a lieutenant at the police department, and it is the dad. And I'm like, hey, it's the dad from Nightmare on Elm Street. And of course, he's like the perfect cop. He always plays like cop. His name is John Saxon. So he evidently, before all that, before he got into these horror movies, was like in a lot of westerns and that kind of thing. But he is the lieutenant, and of course, he's a really good actor. And I will say the acting in general, like, is kind of that typical 1970s over the top acting. I mean, it's like Jess is good, Margot Kidder, it's just over the top. Like Miss McHenry, I mean, just the words they use and everything. It's like, oh, it's just over the top. But like, obviously, John Saxon is a good actor. The Peter guy, there are a lot of experienced actors in this movie. Dialogue is just over the top going on. But yeah, that was fun. So you're seeing the Nightmare on Elm Street dad in this movie. Now at this point, I do look at Daryl and ask him how it's going for him, because he's watching with me, and of course he doesn't like anything ever, and he says it's trash. So this is probably like 30 minutes in, and Daryl says it's trash. I'm liking it. I'll just tell you that. I'm 30 minutes in, I'm liking it. Yeah. But again, my notes are over the top acting, other girl missing, 13-year-old. Okay. By this time, they're at their house. Like I said, Jess had made Barb go to sleep because she had gotten out of control drunk. Miss McHenry tells Jess that she is going to leave. She's going to spend Christmas with her sister. So you do see Miss McHenry getting ready for her trip. Like, she's going to pack. Well, Claude, kind of with Claire. Claire thought she heard Claude, and then she gets killed. Well, same thing with Miss McHenry. She's kind of looking for Claude. She thinks she hears Claude. Well, really, she's hearing the killer. So then she goes up to the attic thinking she's trying to find Claude before she leaves. And then she is killed. She's the second to get killed. And she gets killed really gruesomely. It's like this whole, I don't know why it's in the attic to begin with, but it's like this whole huge hook on a rope thing. It's like we've all seen that, and it's like you can move it around, but he like hooks her with it. So she dies by the killer, and she does see Claire in the chair, and then she gets killed. And Claire still has a plastic bag over her face, and she's in the rocking chair. She's dead. The prank calls continue, and then you do see the girls go back to the police station, but this time to report the prank calls. And then you do find out that in the house, they tell the police that there are two lines. And so the police are like, okay, we've got this missing Claire. We've got prank calls. Let's see if these are linked. And so they talk about how they're going to put like a tap on the phones. And then they talk about where the phones are. So there's like two phones in the house, but Miss McHenry has her own line. So the police know this, and they're tapping in this line and whatever. It's this whole thing. And wire or tapping a phone in the 70s, like this, it shows this man running around this huge loud room, and it's insane to think about. So not very easy to tap a phone, but they do tell the girls, like, if you get another call, you have to keep them on the line as long as possible for us to track where they are. Okay. So this is going on too. I do have a note about things in general. Pinky rings. So I did notice that in this movie, everyone's wearing a pinky ring. Is that a 70s thing? Tell me. I mean, girls and boys. Pinky rings. 70s. Let me know what that's about. Now, okay, so we've got Claire dead, Mrs. Mac dead, got these calls going on. They're trying to track these calls. I think a call comes in and they're not able to track it. It's a whole scene, okay? And then you have Christmas carolers come, and Jess answers the door, and she's so, sweet and doe-eyed, and she's just, like, listening to them, and you can't tell, like, she's pretty expressionless. She's one of those people, like, you can't tell if there's, like, smiling or not, like, happy. I don't know. You can't really tell, but it's like Christmas carolers. Is that really a thing? Is that a thing now? Like, and how, like, do you really want to open your door to have Christmas carolers? And then you have to be like, yeah, you guys are so good. And then you have to give them stuff. Like, it seems like a lot of work for both parties. Let me know what you think of Christmas caroling if you've done this. Maybe we should all do this. I don't know. It was kind of awkward. And then you can't really tell how Jess is feeling about this. And finally, when they stop, which seems to go on forever, they do clap. But they do realize also, like, this is kind of a side note, that the Christmas carolers, the moms that are with them, were like, kids, we got to go. Because it's like they just found out about the murdered 13-year-old, like, somehow while they were Christmas caroling. Anyway, they corral the kids and they're like, kids, we got to go. We got to get in the car. We got to go. Yeah, that's going on. Now Barb is in bed, and you pretty clearly know that she's next for sure. And you can kind of see the killer kind of moving down out of the attic to, like, approach her. But then, like, you think she's dead, but then you hear scream, or, like, she's struggling and she's having an asthma attack. So it's like she had a nightmare. She wakes up and has an asthma attack. Jess runs in and she's fine. She's got her inhaler and she's settling down. So she's going back to bed. And then the killer comes in and kills Barb. And he kills her with, like, I guess she had a lot of, like, glass figurines, like, over her bed. She had, like, one of those 1970s beds where you kind of have, like, a dresser situation or something over your bed. She had all these glass figurines. So he actually, like, impales her glass figurines. It's pretty terrible. And then, so of course, Jess and Phil alive. Those two girls are alive. There is a policeman stationed outside their house, by the way. Phil, kind of the next thing you see is, like, Phil kind of goes off on her own, and she's looking for Barb. And of course, still, like, nobody knows, they don't know anything. The police are kind of feeling like it's Peter, like, that's who they think it is. And so you see Phil go into Barb's room, and then you don't see her again. So you know that she's in trouble. Now, then, I'm trying to think. Kind of a side note, the lieutenant's kind of running around, kind of looking at Peter. Peter had, like, smashed his piano at the conservatory after his awful concert. So that scene is just kind of some side things going on. But you can tell the lieutenant's, like, totally thinking it's Peter, which is Jess's boyfriend. So anyway. So then you see Jess. Jess is pretty much alone. The phone rings, and in this prank call, this time it's still weird, still that just a lot of yelling and moaning, and you kind of feel like he's making the call, like, as he's killing Phil, and then he's talking about an Agnes and a Billy, like he's calling himself Billy, talking about an Agnes, saying awful things and otherwise. So that is happening, and the police are still trying to, like, trace the call. And so this time the caller is staying on the line long enough to get the trace, and then you're seeing kind of the police end of things, like the guy at the phone company and then talking to the police guy, and then the policeman at the station, which is like a Sergeant Nash, he's talking to the lieutenant, the Nightmare on Elm Street lieutenant, and through, like, the radio. Again, the 1974, no cell phones, but they do have, like, the radio dispatch. So they're all communicating, and the phone company comes back and says the call is in the house. It's coming from the house. And so the Nash guy tells the lieutenant, and the lieutenant, of course, is like, the wheels are turning. He's like, what? And so he tells the sergeant, he says, okay, here's the deal. Call Jess and tell her, and he was like, do not mess this up. Do not tell her the killer's in the house, but tell her to walk out the front door. Just tell her to walk out the front door. Like, he's just trying to get her away from the house because he knows the killer's there. So the sergeant calls, and the sergeant has been the one he's just been terrible the whole time. So he gets Jess on the phone, and he tells her not to ask any questions, but he's like, just get out of the house. And she's like, well, I'll go get Phil and Barb, because she doesn't know they're dead. She just knows that Claire's missing. She thinks that the McHenry has gone to her sister's. So yeah, I mean, she's just thinking that Phil and Barb are alive upstairs. So he's like, no, go out of the house. And then he finally tells her, he said, Jess, the killer's in the house. So then she's like, she's torn. She wants to help her friends. And so instead of leaving the house, of course, and I will say this whole scene is like very, obviously like the whole inside the house thing isn't fresh, but it's like, it's very suspenseful, very well done. And it's building, So Jess goes upstairs and she goes into Barb's room, and there in Barb's room, she sees Barb and Phil dead. And that's when it hits her like, oh, this is for real. So then the guy, though, the killer, he kind of calls out to her, and you never see his face. You never see anything. You see an eyeball, and then you see like his arm, but you never see his face. It's very Friday the 13th. The second one with that, it's because you don't really see his face till the end. Anyway, so she sees him. She runs downstairs. He pulls her hair, and she can't see anything but like his eyeball has got like, so she doesn't know who he is either. He could be Peter. She doesn't know. So she gets into the basement. She locks the basement door. She's in the basement. She's crouched down, and the lieutenant's on his way. So she's in the basement. She's totally scared. And then she sees a figure like coming up to like the basement has like a door and windows, one of those situations, kind of like Home Alone basement. But anyway, she can see a figure, and you don't know who the figure is, but then he calls out, and it's Peter. And again, she doesn't know if Peter's the killer or not. She was kind of suspicious of him. So he's like, Jess. So finally, Peter breaks into the basement, and he's looking for her, and you can tell that she's just scared. So this whole scene kind of drags a little bit, but it's very suspenseful. It's very well done. And then finally, all you see is Peter be like, Jess, why are you hiding from me? Like and then it cuts away. So you don't see anything that happens after that. And then it cuts to the front yard where the lieutenant has pulled up with other police cars. He finds the policeman that was supposed to be stationed there dead. So he's been killed. Then the policeman out in the yard that had just pulled up, like all of them, they hear screaming from inside the house. So they rush into the house and go down into the basement because they follow the screams. And then they find Peter with blood all over him, slumped in Jess's lap. And she's unconscious, but she's like alive. So then they get Jess, they put her like in a bed. So far, all that they know, all the police know, and you hear them talking, they're like, they think that Jess killed Peter and that Peter was the culprit. And then they had found Barb and Phil. And that's it. Like, they hadn't gone to the attic. And then Claire's boyfriend and dad are there. And the scene is basically like Jess in bed, the doctor talking about how she needs rest. The police are there. They're talking about how Peter did it and Jess killed him and, blah, blah, blah. And I guess he was making the phone calls after he would kill within the house or whatever. Then, Claire's dad kind of passes out. And so then the men are caring about Claire's dad. They're like, he's in shock. We've got to get into the hospital. So then the house like clears out. There's like only, like they turn off the light and Jess is like just left in this bed, like in her room, just like resting or whatever. Everybody clears out of the house and basically it cuts up to the attic where you can see, Claire's body is placed like kind of in the window, very Psycho-esque, by the way. And then you see McHenry's body up there in the attic, and you kind of hear a little boy kind of singing, I guess, crazy, quote unquote, Billy the Killer. So that is it. That is the end of the movie. Like it cuts to like the front of the house where you see Claire in the window. It shows like one police officer on the porch, just kind of watching things. And that is it. I was so angry. Like it built so well. And I'm not one of those. I don't like these tons of loose ends. So basically like no one searched the house, which, the police work would have been, it's 1974. It's not like, they would have searched the house. But yeah, like the killer is basically still in the attic. The bodies are still in the attic. Like no resolution, no nothing. I was so angry. Like, my notes about it was just like anger. Like, I am angry because this wasn't like a movie that was set up to have like a sequel. Like, there is no sequel. There was no plan for a sequel. It was just that's what they wanted to do. So anyway, I really liked it, the ending up until that point. So, and then I was angry. So, and then I'm looking. It was interesting because there wasn't any sequel and it ends like that. I guess like fans, we're talking like fans throughout the years were wanting to do like a fan sequel. Like they were planning to do a fan sequel. And I think even the Olivia Hussey was on board for such or something. I don't know. Who knows? But they were planning on making some type of fan sequel to have some type of resolution because there's not a sequel. There have been remakes, which I have not seen. I wanted to see the original. I wanted to see this 1970s version. And so I will go back and watch the remakes now, but I've seen this. So anywho, so yeah. So that sucked. So personal opinion is this was good. It's definitely worth a watch. It was very 70s kind of the suspense, and it did feel like Psycho. It did feel like Friday the 13th, although Friday the 13th, like we talked about, came later. So Friday the 13th came later. So I feel like it was really good. Of course, they did the writer. I saw a note, like, of course, the whole calling within the house thing. That's from like the babysitter in the house alone, and the calls coming from inside the house thing. So that was a motivation there. But yeah, overall personal opinion, like if I was giving this a rating, I would be 3.5 out of 5. And I would have been a 4 if the ending was better, if there wasn't all these loose ends for me, because I don't like that. I know some people do. I did not like that at all. Like there needs to be some type of resolution, or they left it like that because they were obviously like going to come back a year later and, make another one like they did with Friday the 13th and Halloween or whatever. So, which he didn't really plan to make a sequel on Halloween. But anyway, I'm glad it worked out. So, it was good. It was really good. I enjoyed like seeing all these like past people. Of course, most of them have passed now. I think that Olivia Hussey had passed. Andrea Martin, she's still around, and I love those My Big Fat Greek Wedding movies. Love it. Of course, she wasn't really like funny in Black Christmas, but she was good. So that was just interesting. So overall, I really enjoyed this movie, and it felt Christmassy and it felt dark, but it was like a real horror movie and not like a Gremlins type of movie where that to me just isn't a real horror movie. So anywho, a thumb and a half up, but 3.5 stars for me. So it was good. I would definitely, in fact, I had to rewatch some scenes just to remember some things about the ending and such. And I mean, it's still delivered even watching it. So I'd love for you guys to tell me if you've seen the movie. Comment if you have seen the movie. Comment if you liked the movie. Obviously, I told you that Daryl said it was trash, but that's not unusual. And then he came back after the ending and stuff. He came back and was like, overall, it's not a bad movie, especially for the time frame. But he feels like all of these 70 movies, which they do, they have the same vibe. It's like the same style of filming, the same acting over the top, that whole thing. That bothers him about it. But yeah, he didn't say, I mean, overall, to get a not so bad from Daryl is a really good from a normal person, especially horror movies. So, because he's really critical on all movies. But anyway, I loved it. So it was awesome, and I want to know what you guys think. And yeah, so this again, this ends the episodes for 26 for Unexplained America, and I'm just excited and thrilled for 2020. Did I say 20? I think I said 26. 25. But I'm excited about 26. I do have a lot of content planned. I have the Titan Missile Fire episode is going to come out in January, and then also I have the Green River Killer episodes coming in January, and then so much planned. Stay tuned for just more unexplainedness, and a live show in 26 for sure is in the plans, and I'm just thrilled. But please, if you can, help out the podcast by commenting, subscribing, following, joining the Patreon would be awesome. So see the show notes, join the Patreon. So yeah, so thank you guys so much for everything the entire year of listening. So I'll be back with you soon. Love ya. Bye. Here is a little Santa figurine playing a saxophone, and here goes. Merry Christmas season. Bye.